Get this shindig started.
Okie dokie, Shmooky. Let's see here. Boom, I've got everything going. We are recording, so whenever you want to make the introductions, we're ready to roll.
How come it always has to be me? Like, do you think I have a word
I mean,
quota
I
or
don't
something?
mind. I can do it.
Go for it. Go for it. Take one for the team, Mark.
And go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the heck you are in this world. Today, I've got Deborah Criddle and myself, Mark Jones. We're going to be talking about some trigger leads, some bills, some things that should be changing, and it has taken way too long for them to actually change. And they haven't changed yet, but Deborah, you want to tell them what we're talking about?
Yeah. I kind of feel like I should have got my soapbox out, like a legit soapbox, my fake soapbox, whatever.
Do you
So
know how many
trigger
people
leads.
love that, by the way?
Yeah.
When you said that in the middle, absolutely. I got so many comments like, that's genius. That's a soapbox. Boom.
Oh, okay. So trigger leads. Trigger leads are like near and dear to a mortgage company's heart because we pull a credit report, a hard inquiry, an actual hit to your credit score on a mortgage model. And there is a law from the Fair Credit Reporting Act that says it's okay for people to buy the fact that your credit report was pulled. So you just get blasted with phone calls. And I'm like, it blows my mind. How did this even get passed? So yeah, trigger leads. We're talking about trigger leads. And you can tell like it's my heart racing. I'm so excited.
I mean, it's definitely something that started a while back. And there were different companies that each mortgage company could buy into to give them access to these trigger leads. And what would end up happening is, let's say you have a customer that you worked with 10 years ago. Well, that company has sold that information plenty of times so that when that customer actually has their credit pulled, and this is not just the mortgage industry, when they have their credit pulled for the purposes of purchasing a vehicle, that information could have been purchased by other car dealerships, in our case, mortgage companies, that then prompt you with a script to shoot text messages and phone calls. So if you're a consumer listening, watching this, and you have had applied for anything recently, and then all of a sudden, like within 30 minutes, your phone starts blowing up, that's what we are talking about here.
Yeah.
For lenders, for us, it's like, my goodness, every time we actually pull a credit for someone, we have to explain, hey, you're about to have your phone blown up by a bunch of people that are going to try and sell you whatever it is that you're looking for. It doesn't mean that they can actually deliver on it, but their job truly is to just call these leads. These, you pop into their queue, you're going to get a phone call, a text message, an email, and multiple of them. So it's super annoying for us, all the way around, right?
I think annoying is a kind word. I think the amount of phone calls, like one of my clients, I kid you not, got 77 phone calls in one day.
Wow.
That's straight up harassment.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
It's just not
their,
even
I
okay.
guess their idea behind it is, if they haven't gone to the national directory to opt out of all of these things, then it's on the consumer. But in my opinion, I think even if the consumer goes to opt out, just like a collection account gets sold to another collection company, they get to continue if it's owned by somebody else now.
Well, kind of. I mean, and you'll want to pop this up on the screen for anybody that's listening when you do your cool little tech stuff, but
Yeah.
opt out pre-screen, obviously optoutprescreen.com you need to go through. And then the actual do not call registry, the national do not call registry.
Yep.
Every one of us need to be on that thing with your home telephone number if you still have a home telephone landline, and then also your cell phone numbers. It just blows my mind as I dove into this, and I'm thinking Fair Credit Reporting Act okayed this. And then one of the articles that I read, because I was trying to find out when it goes to the next step. So it came on the docket that says they're going to pass this law that says no longer can these leads be sold. Okay, when does it go to the next step, and how do we get it there faster? And it actually said in one of the articles, and I don't know if it's this one that you've got on, so you'll want to scroll down and see, but it's actually the credit reporting agency selling this information on the mortgage side of it.
That's right.
And it's
How
not it's
dare
not
them?
oh, it's like, so we have this, like, necessary evil that you can't even do anything in the world. You can't get home insurance, car insurance, cell phone bills, anything without your credit report getting pulled, and now without you really having the choice, you're gonna get all these harassment phone calls with credit reports getting sold and all. I'm just like, "How is this
Yeah.
fair credit reporting anything?"
I agree. Now let's talk about, I guess, further how it affects borrowers when they're going through the process. Because for me, I think that it affects them more than just being annoyed. To be honest,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it introduces a lot of convoluted information, a lot of fake news, a lot of bait and switch,
Bait and
um,
switch.
and confusion when they're already going into a process that's very, very confusing in itself.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes you don't know this consumer has already gone through the ringer in some cases. So we have a relationship with them here at our office and we've got them all lined up. Then they go talk to their realtor that I don't necessarily have a relationship with. And this
Mhm.
realtor's like, hey, maybe you should call this lender I do a lot of business with. And so they've already got two local lenders they've talked to. Now their credit report's getting pulled. Now they have all these national people
Mhm.
calling them and calling them and calling them. And at what point do they just be so overwhelmed, and it just takes the whole enthusiasm and excitement of buying a house out when you're just like, I don't even dare answer phone calls. By the
Right.
time you get phishing and all this other stuff that goes on, you're just like, "Ah,
Right.
who do I even trust?"
I mean, could you imagine as a borrower that is going through the mortgage process, you've already met with your loan officer via Zoom or in person. They've gone over the options with you and you feel comfortable about what's going on. And then you start getting bombarded with all of these junk text messages talking about lower interest rates or we can do this, we can do that. It just fills them with a ton of doubt moving forward. And this is coming from more so call center type lenders that, um, let's
Or
be
reading a
honest.
teleprompt.
Thank you. They're reading off of a screen. They have zero experience,
Yeah.
expertise, because if they did, then they would be on our side of the tracks. Let's be
Exactly.
honest.
Yeah. So they're calling saying, "Hi, this is Susie from ABC Mortgage Company, and I see that you just had your credit report pulled. I can offer you a 5.875 rate. We've got the best da 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 da." That's
Mhm.
great. Can you explain an APR?
Right.
No, because
Right.
that's not on your teleprompt.
Yes. Can you give me advice on structuring this deal? Because it's not done yet. We don't have a contract. Any of the things that we do as lenders, communicating with the realtors, keeping the deal together, so to speak.
Yeah.
It turns into a nightmare, and it's been happening for quite some time now. We, among others, have figured out small ways that we can avoid having the trigger lead actually trigger, but I think for the most part, they're finding ways around that to find ways
Yeah.
around what we've done.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a great bill that is introduced, and in order to get it passed, I think we've just got to have great lobbyists. We've got to vote. We've got to number one, even know that it is something that's on the docket. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, the consumers who are annoyed by it, they're the ones that have to open their mouths too.
right?
Because us as a lending institution, we're frustrated because we're the ones pounding the pavement to build our business, to get those clients, and then we've just got teleprompt people coming in and saying the right words and taking clients. Okay, whatever, neither here nor there. But on the consumer level, it is straight up harassment. It needs to
Mhm.
shut down. And we just have to bring ethical things up a whole level. Like, all people have to sit at a different ethical level.
I have to agree with that 100%. Let me see. I'm reading some of this stuff in the article. The Mortgage Banker Association chimed in on the renewed efforts because I believe they had attempted to do this a couple of times before and it was turned down.
Yeah.
Um,
But I don't think it was as out of control.
right.
Like,
I
do
have to
you
agree.
I mean, narrow down the time frame, but I feel like within probably, well, maybe the refi boom. So maybe the last
Yeah.
2, 3 years, trigger leads have just got out of control.
Well, let's put it in perspective. You've got the last three. We'll start at 2020 because I know Trigger Leads started before then, but it picked up around the 2020 mark. But those that had access to it and were originating probably didn't use it because they were too busy with the customers that they were helping.
Yeah.
So then now you fast forward to where there's not much business going around, and you've got plenty of call centers or big box loan companies that are looking for ways to get more loans in the door. So it's like they're scavengers, in my
Yeah.
opinion,
Yeah.
trying to eat the crumbs off of our table without putting in the hard work.
Yeah.
And I think they've employed that uh, heavily right now, to where, like you said, you had a customer that received 70 messages. Like, come on now.
77.
Yeah,
77.
like
77 phone calls, not even
yeah,
messages, phone calls.
yeah. My wife doesn't even call me that many times in a week.
Well, Chris probably tries to call me that many times.
That's
Yeah,
cute.
that we need some sort of, like, I don't know, marriage counseling podcast for that one, but I'm just kidding. Side note, I just think that if you think about that in an equation of how many calls that is per hour and somebody who has their phone because 'cause they're capable of having that at their workplace and their phone is going off and off and off, like, you can't even have people who need to get a hold of you when those phone calls are coming in.
Agree.
And
And
they're
it,
smart, they're
yeah.
smart. They've bought phone numbers for the area that they're calling from. So, I'm a 208 number, so these people who are doing these phone calls are calling in on 208 numbers.
They're
So
pretty
people are
clever.
answering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's even going further, I would go as far as to say that this may keep people that should be applying from applying, simply
Yeah.
because they've heard from a friend or they've heard from someone that just went through the process on how much of a hassle it was just navigating through all of this minutia of bait and switch and promotional this and promotional that.
Yeah. Yeah, the horror story that went along with that. Yeah. And, you take it out of the annoying phone calls and that part of it, and you think, "Okay, all right, lenders, if you're doing your job, your customers won't leave."
Mm,
Kind of, not
yeah,
really, because if I say, "All right, your interest rate's 6.25," because I see your whole picture. I
correct.
know where your credit scores are, your debt ratio, your down payment, all of that stuff, and I say, "Hey, your rate's at 6.25," and then you've got Tweedledee calling and saying, "Oh, I can get you 5.875." All they have is the fact that your credit report exists. That's all they
Correct.
have. And then what happens is they get you to apply over there and oh, your rate ends up being 6.25, and then the client just stays because you forced him to go further into the process or whatever. It has nothing to do with me doing my job or you doing your job.
Right.
It's the fact of they quoted a rate before certain criterias come
Y
into play.
No, you're right, and I have 2 points that you kinda just brought up there. The first one has to do with a deal. Let's say they do get convinced to go that route because of some low rate gimmick, and let's say the deal wasn't well put together, or maybe their situation was tough, something that, is deemed to have an expert advise them to help them structure the transaction, etcetera, but they got baited into the rate, machine over there, and fast forward, and now the deal doesn't close because they themselves didn't know how difficult their deal was and thought they were in the position to be able to rate shop and all this other stuff. Um, that's pretty detrimental to all parties when it comes to stuff like that. I had a second point, but I totally forgot what it was.
Well, and you're right, and, we've had, situations that and this is really kind of a PSA for people listening to this. If you are that consumer that called Deborah Criddle as a mortgage company, and I quoted you a 6.25 rate, and then some guy calls and says, "Hey, I can give you 5.875." They didn't know your whole story. They dove in a little bit deeper, found out they couldn't get the deal done. They denied your loan, and you feel so embarrassed. I don't want to go back to Deborah Criddle because I went away from her, and oh man, I feel like an idiot. I look like an idiot. Yeah, don't make the phone call. Call me back. I don't really give a crap. Just come back and let me get you taken care of because I don't care.
Don't let your pride get in the way of you potentially succeeding at becoming a homeowner just because some person reading off of a screen told you no.
Yeah. Yeah,
Bottom line, right?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and I know that that's happened a handful of times, and I've
Mhm.
been able to talk to clients and say, "I don't care. I don't care how many times you shot me. If I either didn't do my job well enough and you felt like you needed to go somewhere else, somebody said the right thing and you went somewhere else. I don't care how you came back to me. Just get back to me because
That's
I
right.
will take care of you." And and do my very, very best to get your home loan closed and do it ethically. I
Absolutely.
man, if
Absolutely.
I break a rule, it's because I didn't know I broke a rule. That's where it comes down to.
Yeah.
So,
And I think there's a piece for loan officers in this situation that they themselves can learn from, and it has to do with rate shoppers versus non-rate shoppers. I think with our experience in talking to a customer, their mannerisms, the things that they bring up as a concern, you tend to be able to discover or spot the rate shoppers. So when
yeah,
that happens, be honest with them. Share screen, show them the rates transparently and how they work. Talk about basis points, talk about par. Um, and then let them
discount
know if you
points. Yeah,
discount points and let them know if you feel like this is not the best deal and someone else can, make sure you get it in writing on a loan estimate of some sort and then send it to me and let's go over this so that we can pick it apart or confirm that it is a better deal. And then I hope at this, and this is something that I use every day, I hope at this point that I've given enough value to at least earn the right to compete for that business.
yeah, yeah,
We display our rates as they should be. And then you've got other lenders that know what rate we offer because you yourself told that company. So they're just going to undercut. Well, we can't go below what we offered you because if we get audited and they ask us, well, why did you go lower on this person versus the other person? We've got to have the proof to be able to back it up. Hey, they
yeah,
were being offered this rate, and we're just going to match it. Period.
yeah. Well, and there are those situations, and I 100% feel like good things happen to those that are honest in as many cases as possible. Meaning this: if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, Deb, you quoted me a 6.25 rate. This credit union told me they can do 5.875. Awesome. Let me just look at your loan estimate. Let me
Mhm.
just make sure that there's not some weird something, something in there, or that they're charging extra fees, or that we're
Mhm.
comparing apples to apples.
Right.
Use me as a second set of eyes because I'm going to make sure that you're getting the best deal. And if they're the best deal, then you're going to go to them with a lot of peace because you
Correct.
did your homework. And all I ask of you is if something changes, call me back. And if you've got any friends and family that you want to refer my way because I took care of you, send them my way. That's what happens is
Yeah.
you take care of this one because they got a better deal over there, then you'll get this guy over here because you were honest in making sure that they were taken care of as a client.
That's very true. One thing that I don't see is credit unions using this trigger lead concept to attract customers when they absolutely could. I just don't know if they're equipped to do that type of volume or if, because what we know, and this is just straight up, most credit unions are going to have lower rates than a typical mortgage company. Why? Well, they service their own paper. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, they can make their own rules. It's not like you're getting an FHA loan through a credit union because that FHA loan then would need to be sold on the secondary market, et cetera. They're mostly conventional and they're very structured type loans, almost portfolio esque.
Yeah.
Um, but the consumer doesn't know the difficulty of their file or the complexity of their file or their loan until they know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those people, as you were mentioning before, tend to have too much pride to be able to come back to us and say, "Hey, that didn't work there. I'm coming back to you because you said it could work." They end up drifting off. It's sad in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really think from the consumer standpoint, unless they've walked down this path of having their credit pulled and have their phone blow up via text or phone call, it's like Google, how do I fight trigger leads? Everybody needs
Yeah,
to jump in. And it's not because I I don't want those solicitation calls. I don't really care if you shop me. If I have the best deal, I'm going to take care of you. If somebody down the road has a better deal because they're running a special or something, that's okay. Let's line you up with the best thing that's possibly out there for you. I get it. What we need to stop is the harassment and give the keys back to the driver's seat of the client who says, "Hey, you know what? I called Deborah Criddle over at Man Mortgage. I called Mark at I Think It Mortgage, and I like what they said, but you know what? I want to call ABC Lender over here, and I just want to see what they have to offer." Give the consumer the power to make that
absolutely.
phone call.
Absolutely, and I'm all for that because it keeps me on my toes and makes sure that I'm not slacking off with any customer. Everyone should get the same level of customer service, options, expertise that we can provide over the years that we've gathered all of this knowledge and experience and everything.
Yeah.
Now, if you could, and we can go back and forth on this just briefly, but what are some ways that a consumer, until this bill passes, it's still going to happen? So,
Yeah.
what are
Yeah.
some ways that a consumer would be able to either combat this, avoid this, or mitigate the influx of text messages, calls, uh, things of that nature? Because
So the
I have a feeling that a good title for this is "How to Combat Trigger Leads" or something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah, definitely filing with the National Do Not Call Registry, and
Mhm.
that's gonna help on all aspects of trigger leads and all other phone calls, and then your opt-out pre-screen stuff, but some of that stuff takes some time to get implemented, so the sooner that you can get into that, the better off you're gonna be.
And I'll
The
put that link or put the information like right here when I edit it. Okay.
Yeah, 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 and the thing about the opt-out pre-screen stuff too, if you sign up for that, that helps you get rid of your credit card offers too, and those soft pulls.
Mhm.
And that's concerning too with identity theft. I don't want to go off on a tangent on that, but opt out pre screen is a really good way to protect you in different aspects of things. So do that part of it for sure. But I want to ask you a really big
Sure.
question because you're going to throw those websites up there.
Yeah.
But if that law, when it's not an if, it's when that law passes and they say, hey, as of May 1st of 2024, trigger leads are going to be illegal now.
Mhm.
How long do you think it's going to take for them to actually start
Popping people.
slapping fines?
There you go. Honestly,
Because do we have that kind
that's
of
a tough. That's a
headhunters out there that can
I don't think
shut it
so,
down?
but at the same time, I mean, you've got people that are hired to scour the internet for copyright infringement and trademark infringement. So I think it would be something along those lines. But even still, the enforcement of it and the penalties for something like that, maybe they go alongside the calling somebody on the do not call list, the fines, the what is it called when you're sidelined for a little while? You go on a I don't know.
Blacklist is the
Yeah,
only thing
something
I could.
something along right. But I think the first couple need to be pretty big, showcases of this is what we're going
Yeah,
to do if you do it, because I know that even when the bill passes, these larger call centers that depend on this type of business coming in, they're going to continue.
yeah,
And
yeah,
who knows? They may even say, "Hey, we're doing enough business that warrants us to get fined a couple of times until we figure out another solution."
yeah, yeah. They need to make a poster child out of somebody.
Yeah,
It's just
I
will
agree.
they? I don't know, but we all need to fight it. We absolutely do because people are already discouraged if they are hitting roadblocks with
Mhm.
buying homes. Prices are so high. Rates are definitely coming down, but they're still higher than where they need to be to help offset the increase to the housing prices.
Yeah,
So the last thing they need to do is feel like they can't survive the phone call mess. Just
yeah, I
it,
agree.
it's just one more thing that is just discouraging to a homeowner. And we've all had in the industry, we've all had when borrowers that we've done loans for that are so excited. It was just an awesome process, and it's like write in your journal about how awesome my first time home buyer was. But then you've got these other ones that you're just like, if you ever call me again, we will go drink beers together because we can't handle each other anymore because
Yep,
they're just so stressful. But
it's
and then
true.
everything obviously in between. But
Well, I mean, that's I'm getting ready to, and I'm preparing this content, because the other night I was looking at a property in the county appraisal, and just something stood out to me that was like slapping me in the face. I then went back to the CAD, threw in a zip code, just any random zip code, and started scrolling. And then I threw in another zip code and started scrolling. And what stood out to me is the number. Now, mind you, this is just in Bear County that I was accessing, but I then ventured into different counties to test the theory, but the amount of homes that are owned by LLCs is daunting. It's like,
uh,
whoa. So my message to consumers out there is, okay, rates may be higher than what you're used to seeing. Your buying power may be lower than what it used to be, but you're going to end up becoming a forever renter because the big investors, they're not stopping buying homes to convert them to rental properties. That
Yeah.
is the agenda 100%, and there's no secrets about it. So I empower anybody just for a, I don't know, wide awakening to go to your county appraisal district website, type in any address, and just start scrolling and seeing all the addresses and the homeowners' names, and notice how many LLCs own those properties versus an actual family that own those properties.
Yeah.
The statistics are silly. Matter of fact, in Texas, 46% of homes are owned by institutions. That's mind blowing, in my opinion. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. There was an article that was popping up on my computer. I ought to find it again. I just glanced at the headline, and it was some bills that are trying to pass to slow down businesses buying properties and investors buying properties, and I didn't have the time to read it, but I'm gonna go find that.
That's
That's
a
gonna
good
be
topic though, because
yeah,
in my opinion, I'm all for capitalism as long as you're not taking advantage of people. And is it in our uh I don't know, is it right for us to limit investors if they have the opportunity to purchase them? Should we give consumers X amount of time with the property days on market before investors, kind of like HUD homes do?
yeah,
Um I don't know, because at the end of the day, it's the consumer that is making the decision to not throw their hat in the ring.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like,
it really
wake
is.
up, America.
Yeah, it really is, and the problem is in so many cases, people who are scared to buy homes, they maybe tread lightly here, but maybe they're listening to the wrong sources.
True.
You know, if you go online or even watch certain news media, they're they are so anti-buy homes,
Mhm.
and but then stop for just a minute, talk to a professional and say, "Okay, listen, yes, you're kind of at the height of the market. Yes, the rates are a little bit high, but over a 5-year period of time, look at what you've gained." So,
Right.
go in with an education rather than a scare tactic that isn't all over and I don't quite understand the logic there, but it
Right.
exists. Like, if
Yeah,
it's
you're
just
100% accurate, and I think one of the reasons that I don't feel the need to impose additional laws against investors is because the smart homeowners, especially right now, are actually becoming investors.
yeah,
Why? Because they've got a 3%, sub 3% rate on their current. They're like, "Look, we wanna buy another house, or we want to move," whatever the case, but we wanna hold on to this house.
yeah,
So now it's like you're penalizing everybody that took the risk in purchasing a home, um, in uh, building equity for the future, that kind of stuff, and making it a bad thing. It's not, in my opinion. It's just the concept of what people are consuming is what's telling them wrong information. It's
yeah,
sad.
yeah. Well, and really you've got people who are going to become independently wealthy because they decided to jump in and then buy an investment property, and they're just Joe Blow off the street.
Yeah.
They're not billionaires that have a ton of money to invest. They're just listening to the right people and buying and building a little bit of a portfolio, and in 30 years have free and clear homes. So we don't wanna chop out investors that could be just little low men on the totem pole, not some huge billionaire investor companies too.
Right.
So, investors as a whole define billionaires to one guy who just wants to upgrade a house and turn another one into a rental. So, yeah, you really can't put your thumb on the investor per se.
Correct. I agree. I agree. It's just sad.
Yeah.
But at least the consumers have folks like us guiding them.
Yeah.
So I guess those out there, if you're tuning into this and you got a little bit of nuggets out of this, share it with a friend, somebody that's renting a house, somebody that is maybe going through the mortgage process or thinking about going through the mortgage process, because it'd be nice to know what is ahead versus being surprised and slapped upside of the face with all of these surprises.
Yeah, yeah, and I would say opt out pre-screen, National Do Not Call Registry, get yourself lined up with those for sure, and then, go to the world wide web, the interweb here. Figure out as a consumer what you can do
On the
to
line.
combat that. Like, we have to all jump on board to pass this trigger lead thing because teleprompt boys need to be a thing of the past. We gotta
I
get them
agree.
gone.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. Well, is there anything else that you want to add to this? That was pretty good again. Number
Nope,
3, get you
nope.
some.
I'm so excited. No, when I saw this come across, because we had fought it, right? Because
Yeah,
we got the email a few months ago that said, "Hey, you guys, jump in, write your congressman, your legislature, legislators, whoever is over you in your area, let them know you're behind this." And the national mortgage associations are there, the local associations are there. We've got a lot of big people fighting this. So now we just need the consumers, and we'll get this passed.
yeah,
So
I have to agree. I have to agree.
yeah,
Well, another great discussion with my friend Deborah Criddle,
yeah, yeah.
and who is pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome. Trigger Leads, not awesome.
Not
Mark
awesome.
Jones, awesome.
Boom.
Deborah Criddle, awesome.
Awesome. We
Yeah.
are awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We will catch you on the next one.
Have a good week.
And a Merry Christmas, too.
And Merry Christmas. Yes.